Okay, so in this second part, you'll find there's a B major backing track which you can download, and as I said, there's tabs in there as well for you to check out for the B major scale, which will be showing you the close-up for those positions shortly. And the whole idea really is to just start exploring with the scale patterns so that as the chord progression changes, you can get some fresh ideas and discover where these two different scale shapes are based, because one of them is based around a position 4 chord, which is here for the B, and the position 1 chord, which is up here. Now immediately those voices don't sound particularly different, but if I start adding all the extra notes in, I get a nice arpeggio on the B there, and it's a slightly sort of thicker sound down here. I don't get the same arpeggio. So the chord voicings each give something slightly different, but the actual, like for example, if we were playing power chords, they're both the same notes, but on the bottom string here, because of the thicker string, the sound of the chord is a little bit thicker. So it depends what kind of sound you're after as well. You've got a choice of where to voice these chords, which is the whole idea really. One of the other great things about knowing where your chords are, because it's quite often an overlooked thing. Most people, or I should say, a lot of guitarists, when they're looking to play, are all looking for the flashy kind of, all this kind of shred stuff, which is great, and I love all that. But if you're just looking to play as a general musician better, and you're looking for chord voicings, sometimes you want to get a certain sound out of the chord. So you want the higher notes, like with this G chord up here. There's the same chord, but got a different voicing of it. The reason it's good to know those different triad shapes and different system shapes from the Cage system is because sometimes you want to play specific chords, but you want to voice them in a certain way, and it wouldn't always make sense to be moving up and down the neck. So understanding these chord shapes in different places can give you much smoother transitions. So for example, if I wanted to go from this D, let's say I'm going to play a D here, because I want that voicing. That's maybe a bit high. I don't want to introduce that note yet. Maybe it's for a reason because it doesn't come up in the part of the song that I really want to feature it. And I'm going to play it there, and I want to go to an A afterwards. Keeping on back and forth can get a bit clunky. If I wanted to, I've got a different A chord there. In position 1. So I'm position 4 D, position 1 A. And it just gives me a different voicing from down there. So yeah, if I didn't want to do that move, I could just keep it local and play it there. So there's lots of cool reasons why it's good to know where these different chords are going to pop up. And like I said, in the main course, that's all fully explained how the root note pattern works together so that you can actually link these shapes up. So I could go from an A here to an A here and here, and then up to the next one, and put all those together. So that's how that all works. Okay, so also you'll have found in this second part of the mini course the B major backing track. So I just want to show you, and don't forget again, there's tabs for both of these patterns in the downloads available. So I'm playing in position 1, which is based around the B major there. So I'm going. Okay, so that's in the tab, that's one of the voicings, and down here I'm playing in what we would call position 4. Now this you might know just as the regular B chord, but it's actually an A shape. So if I take an A chord and move those 3 notes up, that's where the A comes from in the caged system for the B. There's my A chord placed there. So what I can do, I can go. Okay, and again, like I said, that's in the tabs as well. So there's the close-ups for you on those 2 scale patterns, both the same scale in completely different positions. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to keep these chord patterns quite simple just to demonstrate that the scale can sound different as the different chords are played, but also, like we've been saying, it's to get you thinking about playing in a position which is not necessarily in your comfort zone, so you can actually start exploring the neck with a lot more confidence. So the idea, which we'll have the close-up for in a second, is just based around the B major and the F sharp chords. So here's the loop, and here's the idea. So it doesn't really matter, I'm not playing to a specific pattern or time, I'm just trying to associate that the chords are making the scale notes sound different. Okay, so you can see those in a bit more close up when we go in for the zoom in camera shot. Okay, so one of the little lick ideas that I want to show you that we played just now in a bit more detail is this static kind of pattern that goes over between two of the chords which are changing. So just to remind you, those chords are a B and an F sharp. Okay, now the reason I've picked these keys is because, you know, ordinarily guitarists, we learn a lot of stuff in A and D and E and G, but I wanted to, you know, the whole point of this really is to expand your horizons across the fretboard. So I wanted to pick a couple of keys which we wouldn't necessarily always use, and also where it gets you thinking a bit more about where you're having to play. So it gets you out of your comfort zone, which is obviously a great way to learn. So the lick I'm playing is this in close up. Sorry. So just to remind you, and then so you can hear as I'm changing the last note there, it's just making a bit of difference as the chord lands between the B and the F sharp. Okay, so let's see how you get on with those. Okay, so in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a B major scale position. Now, the backing track that I've put together for this is really just kind of like a pop backing track. It's not rocky particularly, and it's basically created with the chords from the B major scale so that we can sort of highlight the B major scale in its basic element, which is as a scale form over the top of the chord progression. So what I mean by that is that normally you'd have a melody. So when you've got any song, the melody aspect of the, you know, it takes over and that you hear the tune as such. But what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to play a basic B major scale, and obviously I'll zoom in a bit so you can see what I'm playing. And what the backing track is going to basically be doing is taking us through different chord structures from the B major scale so that there's chords that work with that scale. And I'll be playing a B major over the top of it, just in a couple of different positions, just to show you how different notes sound when they're voiced against a different chord. So we've basically got a B major scale which goes like this, and then up into the next octave. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to play along to the backing track, and I'll just be playing around with B major scale rather than trying to create a melody, just playing over the scale pattern up and down, so you can get used to hearing what the scale sounds like. And as the chords change, you can see certain patterns will start to sound different because the chord voicing is making the scale notes appear different, and that's to do with where those notes are in relation to the chord. And that's something that's a bit more technical that I don't really want to get into in this video, but you'll hear the difference anyway. So let's have a listen to that. Okay, so you'll have seen me playing around here, which, as you'll see on the tabs, is frets 7, 9 and 11 for the B major scale. So that's pure major. But what I can also do is go into the major pentatonic. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mix it up a little bit now, and I'll go through the scale in both shapes. So what I mean by that is I'll play the B major scale here, and I'll play the B major pentatonic. So the pentatonic scale has only got 5 notes, and the major scale has got 7, so that's why there's a different sound. So if it sounds like I'm leaping around a bit, rather than going, that's because of those extra 2 notes from the major scale. So what I'll do, I'll start alternating between those positions a bit, so hopefully you can kind of get a different feel or a different sound. And what the point of this really is, it starts to open up different licks, because I can't do this with the major scale, which is an old bluesy pentatonic kind of lick, but I can't play that if I'm playing a major scale. But what I can't do with the pentatonic scale is do these fast 3-note per string runs. So this is why the cage system is so beneficial, because what it does is it allows you to kind of explore different options in different shapes, and different shapes give you different licks. Okay, so let's have a look at the D minor and the G chords, which I'll be showing you a close-up of in a second. So I'm playing a D minor here, and I'm playing my G here. So you might recognize this if you're a Pink Floyd fan. You might recognize the sound of these 2 chord voicings. So what we do is we'll have a close-up look at those, and I'll explain in a bit more detail where those chord voicings come from. Okay, so let's have a look at these 2 little chord ideas in a bit more detail. So I was playing the position 4 D minor, okay, which you might recognize from a Pink Floyd song. And I was also playing another G chord. Now, in the first video, we were playing a G minor shape in this position, but the chord would look different because what I'm playing here is a D major shape. And if I go to the G minor in this position, it would be like this. So it's like a D minor chord. This is like a D major chord. Okay, but clearly they're not D because D is in this position. So we're talking about pitch, which is one thing, and shape, which is another. So here's a D chord. That's a D shape chord, and it is in fact D chord. This is the D minor chord. So in the first video where I took that D minor chord and extended it up into the position where I would play it as a G minor, I'm now taking the same idea, but I'm making that the G major chord. So it's the D shape. But I can't play now that open root note like I would have done in this position, because now it doesn't work. It sounds okay because the D note is in the G scale and the D chord, but it doesn't work in terms of the root. So it changes the tonality of the chord a little bit. So we want the more solid triad. Now if I play over on this pattern, this is the D minor, the G major. Okay, now the reason that's important is because if I played those just in their open position, let's say the D minor, sounds the same, but it just gives me a different voicing, and I prefer, or I would have done if I'd written this song, clearly they did, there and there for their chord voicings. Now, if you listen to the track, like a lot of these rock songs, there's lots of layering and there's lots of guitar parts, and they would have gone and played all these other chords down here in these positions, but the predominant voicings that you hear are up around this position. So what we do is I'll do a little loop idea so you can see how that works. So what we've got is this loop pattern now, which is based over those two chords. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to play some ideas around the D minor pentatonic. So if you're a Pink Floyd fan, some of this might sound a bit familiar. Okay, so you can see how those chord voicings work a bit differently. If I actually double track the chords lower down as well, let me try that. So I'm going to play with the D minor down here. Ready? So you can see that adds a bit more kind of texture to the voicing and a bit more depth. So that's one of the great reasons why it's really cool to know some of these other chord shapes up and down the neck in the different positions from the caged system, so that you can start adding them in, adding them to create more texture, or just get different note voicings and chord voicings, and just add a bit of difference into your playing. If you're a songwriter, for example, it's a great idea to introduce a different twist on chords that you already know and have used in other songs maybe, and just to get different voicings and different ideas coming through in your playing as much as anything. Okay, so another reason why it's quite cool to understand where these chords show themselves up on the fretboard is, for example, and obviously I know that it depends what sort of genre of music that you're into to some degree, because that does make a difference. But for example, when I'm playing, or sorry, when I'm teaching people and they're listening to a song which is maybe an old, like a Motown song, or even something like an Amy Winehouse thing where there's a lot of Motown style chords there, you find the chord voicings are generally a lot higher up the neck. So if I was playing something like this, okay, instantly you can hear it's got that kind of old 60s Motown, should we say, vibe, but it's not immediately recognizable what chords I'm playing. And they're both position 1 chords. I was playing a D basically in an E minor, so I'm going D, and that's based from the bar chord D, and then the bar chord E minor. But I'm not playing the whole chords because I don't need all these kind of bass voicings in it. I just want the top part, because in the mix that's what's cutting through. So it's a great way to, like I said, you know, add a bit of versatility into your chord voicings, and also just to add a bit of different sound if you're, especially if you're writing and you want some ideas and you're looking for different places to voice those chords. So in the main cage system, we'll explore those in a lot more detail, and to find out exactly where you can find those shapes and how the patterns actually all come together. Okay, so don't forget, all the backing tracks in both of these parts of the courses are yours to keep. You can download them and, you know, jam along with them, as are the tabs. And obviously in the main course, there's much more information. We've got other backing tracks, loads more tabs, all the diagrams for the caged chords, all the pentatonic shapes, the 5 pentatonic shapes, and all the major scale positions, so that you can really start integrating those into your playing and take your playing up a couple of levels and explore the fretboard with confidence. So why not check that out while you're here? Just click down below and that'll sign you into the course, and then you can take it from there and have fun shredding up and down in whatever position you want, in whatever key you want.